All right, so today we're diving headfirst into this whole Trump crypto thing, with his new project, World Liberty Financial, WLFI.
Yeah, it's definitely caught everyone's attention, that's for sure. I mean, is this really a legitimate move into DeFi, or is it, just another Trump spectacle?
And that's the million-dollar question, right? Because let's be real, it wouldn't be a Trump venture without a healthy dose of head-scratching. I mean, for anyone who might not be totally familiar with this whole DeFi thing, it stands for decentralized finance, and it's basically all about using blockchain tech to cut out those traditional middlemen we see in finance.
Exactly. So, like, imagine being able to do your borrowing, your lending, all that investing stuff, but without needing a bank or a brokerage firm.
Right, kind of flips the script. And then, of course, you've got Trump, who, let's face it, has never been shy about slapping his name on,
Yeah.
well, pretty much anything.
You're telling me we've got the gold-plated skyscrapers, we've got the stakes, even autographed Bibles, and now he's jumping into crypto.
It's like he's decided to play financial bingo, marking off every square he can. But the really interesting thing here is that even within the tech world itself, opinions on this whole thing are really divided. You've got someone like Mark Cuban, who's actually a pretty big DeFi advocate, but even he's not sold on this.
Yeah, and Cuban's no stranger to the business world, right? He basically called it out as a marketing ploy, pointed to stuff like Trump stakes, those NFTs he did.
Yeah.
It's like, Cuban's seen this movie before, and he's not buying a ticket this time.
I mean, can you blame him? There's definitely a sense of, here we go again with some of this. But then on the other side of the coin, you've got people like David Nixod, co-founder of DeFi Gold, who seems to be absolutely stoked about the whole thing.
And Nixon's argument is that Trump, well, love him or hate him, the man knows how to grab attention,
Yeah.
right? And that kind of spotlight, that could actually be huge for pulling new users into the crypto world, getting them interested in DeFi.
So his whole thing is that even if it's just for the spectacle of it all, at least people are talking about DeFi, debating it, maybe even looking into it for the first time. And that's got to count for something, right?
Yeah, there's that no such thing as bad publicity kind of vibe. I mean,
Yeah.
think about it. His supporters, his critics, everyone in between, they're all suddenly talking about DeFi. It's like this weird crash course that no one asked for.
It's definitely got that can't look away from the train wreck energy. But like with anything Trump touches, it comes with a whole lot of baggage. And that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating and, let's be honest, a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah, for sure. It's like he's holding this financial hand grenade, pin half pulled. Is it going to blow up? Is it going to fizzle out? Or is this going to somehow completely reshape the landscape?
And that's the billion-dollar question that we're all waiting to see play out.
That's what we're here to try and unpack.
Exactly. So let's dig into some of those specific concerns swirling around WLFI. And I think we should probably start with someone who, maybe surprisingly, is actually a Trump supporter.
Yeah, because this isn't just some tech world debate, right? This one's got some real political teeth to it. Absolutely. And what makes it even more interesting is that some of the biggest alarm bells are being rung by Nick Carter, who's actually, a Trump supporter.
Which makes his concerns hit a whole lot differently, you know what I mean? Like, it's one thing when you've got skeptics on the outside saying this is going to be a disaster, but when it's someone from within the ranks, someone who's actually on the team, that's when you have to sit up and take notice.
It's like, imagine your favorite sports team. They go out and they draft this player, and this player's got tons of potential, but they've also got, shall we say, a bit of a checkered past. You're still rooting for them, but you're definitely holding your breath a little, right?
Okay, that's a perfect analogy. And in this case, what has Carter so worried is that he sees this whole WLFI thing as a potential bad outcome waiting to happen. And not just for the project itself, but for the entire campaign.
And he's not just talking about bad PR here. Carter's specifically worried about the legal ramifications, even going as far as name-dropping the SEC.
The SEC, as in the Securities and Exchange Commission, the financial watchdog with some serious bite.
The one and only. And they haven't exactly been shy about flexing their muscles in the crypto world lately, have they?
Not even a little bit. I mean, you just have to look at what happened with Coinbase and Binance this year, two of the biggest names in the game, both hit with lawsuits from the SEC. It's a clear message that regulators are done playing around. They're here to enforce the rules, and they're not afraid of who they have to go after to do it.
Exactly, even with an election just around the corner. Which, brings us to another voice worth hearing on this, Anthony Scaramucci.
Oh, yes, the Mooch. Former White House communications director and someone who definitely knows a thing or two about Trump's style.
Someone who's seen the man in action, for better or for worse. And Scaramucci did not mince words, calling WLFI a scammy grift, plain and simple.
Wow. And what makes his take so interesting is that he was part of that inner circle, even if it was a short-lived stint.
He's been in those rooms, he's seen the playbook, so to speak, and that lends a lot of weight to his words. He's not just some outsider lobbing criticisms from the cheap seats.
Exactly. And what has him particularly worried is the potential damage this could do, not just to Trump, but to the entire crypto industry.
Because crypto is already battling this perception, right? That it's risky, that it's unregulated, kind of the Wild West of finance. So when you throw a high-profile scandal involving a presidential candidate into the mix, well, that's the kind of PR nightmare that could set the industry back years.
So we've got concerns about legal trouble, we've got concerns about damage to the crypto market, and all of this is happening against the backdrop of a superheated election. But I think we need to take a step back for a second and address the elephant in the room. What even is WLFI? How does this whole thing actually work?
Yeah, let's break it down. Let's talk about the tokenomics, the nitty-gritty of how these WLFI tokens are structured and distributed. And it's here that those red flags Scaramucci was waving start to really make some sense.
Okay, I'm all ears. Lay it on me.
So right off the bat, 20% of all the WLFI tokens are going straight to the founding team. And yes, that includes the Trumps.
Hold on, 20% right out of the gate. That seems a little steep, doesn't it?
It's definitely on the high end. Let's put it that way. In most DeFi projects, the founder allocations are much, much lower, often in the single digits. And that's by design. It's about ensuring fairness, it's about transparency, and it's about preventing any one party from having too much control.
So not exactly screaming decentralized if one group is walking away with such a big slice of the pie right from the start. What about the rest of the tokens? Where did they go?
So 17% of those tokens are supposed to be for user rewards, which, okay, sounds good in theory, but the details on that are still pretty fuzzy. And then the remaining 63%, well, that's supposed to be up for grabs in a public sale.
Public sale, meaning anyone can buy in. No special treatment, no backroom deals.
That's the claim, at least. No pre-sales, no special access for insiders. But even if we take that at face value, that 20% for the founding team is still really hard to ignore.
It does kind of feel like they're trying to slip something past us, especially with the election just a few weeks away.
And it all leads to a pretty uncomfortable question, one that even some Trump supporters are starting to ask.
Okay, so this is what everyone's thinking, right? Is this whole thing, this WLFI thing, is this just a way to pump a bunch of money into the project, maybe line some pockets and then dump it after the election? Like, are we talking about a pump and dump scheme here?
Yeah, it's the big question mark hanging over all of this, isn't it? And just so everyone's on the same page, a pump and dump is basically when you artificially inflate the price of something, in this case, those WLFI tokens, to get people to invest. And then once the price is way up, you sell off a big chunk of what you've got, which then, of course, causes the price to crash. And all those people who bought in late, well, they're left holding the bag.
And the timing of all of this, with the election just weeks away, I don't know, it makes you wonder.
Of course. And to be fair, we have to say that right now, this is all speculation, right? We don't have any concrete proof that this is what's happening. But when you look at the lack of transparency around WLFI, and you combine that with those tokenomics we talked about, well, it's enough to raise some eyebrows, especially with the SEC already cracking down on crypto like we've been seeing.
Right, so it's like, are we saying that Trump is using DeFi to game the system?
Again, we can't say that for sure. We're just exploring the possibilities here. But what this does highlight is this real tension in the crypto world, this potential for market manipulation, something regulators are trying to wrap their heads around. And this whole situation with WLFI, if it keeps escalating, it could become a major test case for the entire industry.
Okay, so on the one hand, you've got these concerns about transparency, about possible market manipulation, about legal risks. But then on the other hand, you've got folks like Nick Passano who see this as a really savvy power play by Trump.
Yeah, Passano is the co-founder of MAGA Meme Pack. He's basically saying that this whole thing with WLFI, it's a way to force the SEC's hand. Like they're either going to have to take Trump on directly or they back down and they risk looking weak.
So classic Trump move then. Back your opponent into a corner, make them make the first move, and then you use that reaction to your advantage.
Exactly. Because if the SEC does go after Trump, it plays right into this narrative he's been pushing, right? This idea that the system is rigged against him, that the deep state's out to get him. And that's a story Trump knows how to sell, no question.
For sure. But what if the SEC calls his bluff? What if they just let this whole WLFI thing play out?
Well, in Passano's view, that actually plays into Trump's hands even more. Because then he gets to position himself as the champion of the little guy, the one taking on those big bad financial institutions, he becomes the DeFi crusader.
Which, again, fits perfectly with his whole brand, this whole populist message he's been pushing.
Yeah.
Trump as the outsider fighting for the everyday person against the elites.
Right? It's a story that's worked for him before. But, and this is the big but here, we're dealing with a lot of what ifs at this point. No one knows what the SEC is going to do or even what Trump's ultimate goal is with all of this.
So where does that leave us? What are we supposed to take away from all of this?
Honestly, I think the biggest takeaway here is that this whole situation with Trump and WLFI, it's like this tangled up mess of financial risk, political maneuvering, and potential regulatory showdowns. It's a story that's still being written, and how it all plays out, well, it could have huge implications, not just for Trump's political future, but for the future of crypto itself.
It's crazy to think that this isn't just about some tech investment anymore. This is about money, it's about power, it's about the future of how we even think about finance.
Absolutely, and as you're trying to navigate this whole crazy landscape, I think the most important things are to stay informed, ask the tough questions, and don't be afraid to just wait it out. Sometimes the smartest move is not making a move at all.
Words to live by, especially in this wild west of crypto. So that's it for our deep dive into Trump's crypto gamble. Stay tuned because this story is far from over.